Welcome to session number 4. You've made it this far. Congratulations. We're going to continue our journey on the mindfulness learnings that we've been doing, and we're going to move this week to ego. We're going to talk more about what ego is, but before we get there, I've got to talk a little bit about myself. Self-actualization. Talk a little bit about myself, because it's all about me. And it's nothing more fitting than that when you're starting an ego presentation than to talk about yourself. But this is a little bit more humble than you might imagine. So my life's work. I've been working on self-actualization since I was in my teens. I read books like Covey's 7 Habits and Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret. I read books like Napoleon Hill's Key to Success and Vernon Howard's Pathways to Living. I was a weird child, okay? And in my 20s, I set a bunch of goals. And they were goals about career and personal development and wealth. And by the time I was in my mid-30s, I'd hit them all. So I did what everyone else does when you're bored and you've hit all your goals. I went back and tried to figure out another set of goals, right? So I did that for a long time. I went back, I left my CEO job, and I went back to school and got a PhD in psychology. I wrote a book. I worked with hundreds, almost 600 executives on retreats. I did corporate strategic planning, leadership development, team building for a variety of organizations, mostly corporations. And I spoke with almost 6,000, actually over 6,000 college and high school kids about how to be more successful. And at the end of this period, about 3 years ago, I realized I still really wasn't happy. Wait a minute, how does someone with a doctorate in positive psychology, which is the science of happiness, not be happy? Because something was missing. And I didn't know what it was. I was the self-actualization guru. I wrote a book on it. I gave seminars on it. My personal and professional development for almost 40 years was based on this subject. And you're going to even guess my title? Actualization strategist. That's what I called myself for the 15 years I ran the Camus Group. But it wasn't working. Something was missing. And I was really curious as to what it was. Because here I am believing this statement, that growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is painful. It's staying somewhere you shouldn't be. So I taught a lot of people how to grow as their own persons. Well, I took 3 years off to figure it out, used my research background, dug in as best I could, and sure as anything, I ran into the answer. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who had the answer. As it turns out, a lot of people knew the answer. I had to take the long way to get where smart people got. So that's my ego story on this one. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Does anyone remember what it is? We started the very first session talking about it. You have to have physical needs met first, things like food, safety needs like shelter, love and belonging needs. Then you have esteem needs. Remember the very first seminar? What was it on? Resilience, that's an esteem need. You've got to have that met. And then after all those are met, Maslow says the highest thing a person can become is to become fully self-actualized. There was a commercial in the 80s. Anyone remember for the Army? What was the slogan? Be all you can be. That is literally a self-actualization slogan. Be all you can be. So Maslow did publish this, and it created a whole industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the self-help industry. Go walk down any bookstore, there's a whole aisle, any library. How to be a better you. So this is fascinating in of itself, except Maslow disagreed with it later in his life. And this is the study that I stumbled on, and it blew me away. He realized something was missing in his model. Not only did he realize it, but it bothered him so much that he went back and did research around it, and he realized there's something greater achievement than self-actualization. He even published it. Now, admittedly, he published it in an esoteric journal, but I don't think that was what the issue was. I think the issue is that what he published didn't fit into the me orientation. When you go do something to get something back, it's a good investment, right? Aren't we all about that? We'll do that all day long. That's self-actualization. But what happens when you start doing things not to get something back? That's what Maslow realized. He realized there's this small group of people out there who had transcended the need to get something back. And he rewrote his model that the highest form of human achievement is transcending the self. And that brings us to a very interesting question. What is the self? See, becoming all you can be is not the pinnacle of human achievement. Letting go of what you think you are is. Ego. Ego is a self-created identity. Now, I'm going to use this term of self in two ways, and I'm just going to define it up front so that you know what I'm talking about. But to do that, it's easiest just to go to Romans and get an idea of what the Bible says about yourself. It says, if you live according to flesh, you'll die, but if you live by spirit, you put to deeds the death of the body, you will live. It's Paul's writing to the Romans. So he already delineates there's two selves, right? Here he calls it a body self and a spirit self, but I'll just go ahead and shift it and talk about our identity self and our spirit self. The identity self we will talk about for the rest of this morning will be ego. The spirit self will be spirit self. I will talk about them separately. When in doubt, I'm talking about the ego. And that is your self-identity. So the ego is very interesting. In order for there to be a you, what needs to happen? Or in order for there to be a me, what needs to happen? There needs to be a you, right. In order for there to be a you, what needs to happen? There has to be you in order for there to be a me, right? So the minute you define yourself, you've created a separation. And this is really important. It's fundamental to the whole understanding of ego. So there has to be a you. And the minute there's a you, that you holds assumptions and beliefs. And those beliefs are limiting. Well, didn't we see this somewhere before, Russ? Yes, you did. This you holds labels and judgments and stereotypes. They limit your ability to see what's really in front of you. It holds expectations, desires, and wants, and these are the things that create anxiety and pain in your life. Because either you're trying to cling on to them or you're trying to avoid them, both of which are not doable things. In addition, this you, not only internally, but has external ramifications. Because the external you, when in a society, wants to accumulate achievement, and status, and power. Although I can tell you, no matter how many times you go back to the well to achieve, it's not going to fulfill you. Wealth, accumulation are things that the ego likes. Because ultimately, the ego likes pleasures, escapes, and this sense of feeling good about you. And it leaves you craving for more. We call that hedonic or hedonism. But that is the ego. That's what it likes.
Is the ego, though, to show, is it yourself that you're trying to validate, or is it trying to get validation from others?
Both. Excellent question. We're going to bump into that. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface here. We're going to go further in this. But this ego, what does this create in the human condition? What does walking through the world with this set of profile do to the world around you? Anybody? No wrong answers.
Endless.
What was it?
Endless.
Endless? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can never feed it enough. It's certainly a ravenous appetite.
Selfishness.
Yeah, selfishness, self-orientedness. Remember Nate talked about curved in on yourself? The Latin term incurvatus in se, it's a small letter C, which is a person who's curved in on themselves as a lesser person. It's a very biblical thing. So what we're talking about has been known across cultures and across religions for thousands of years. I'm going to bring it home because it's going to tie directly into our mindfulness studies as we move next week into awareness. See, the ego, just like I told you last time, is the clouds. Of the clouds you have, the ideations and the emotions and the thoughts that stand between you and the sunshine, which we called happiness last week. It's always there, but you have these clouds, and mindfulness helps you dissipate those clouds. They're there less often. Ego is a good portion of those clouds. Actually, studies show somewhere between 55 and more % of all your thoughts, feelings, and ideations are about you. Big number. I'll prove the point. If you don't have something to write with, no worries. But if you do, I want you to think of a problem in your life. A situation that's unfair, or a troubled relationship, or a past hurt. Get it clearly in your mind and write it down in one sentence on your piece of paper. You're not showing this to anybody, this is for you. Make it cryptic. Again, a situation that's unfair, or a troubled relationship, or a past hurt, some sort of problem in your life. Write it down. Okay, most people have looked up. If you didn't exist, would it still be a problem? No, if you wrote down world hunger, it'd still be a problem. But you didn't, did you? Right. Point made. And this is well known. As a matter of fact, that's kind of the embarrassing part about my background is I taught people to be self-actualized only later to learn that that was the beginning of it. So neo means new birth, emergence. There is a new birth going on in many people's lives. And Carl Jung spells it out, the famous psychologist, Carl Jung. The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego. The second half is going inward and letting go of it. So Carl Jung points this out very adeptly. Why? Why? Let's talk about the science a little bit, because I think it's helpful to understand where this comes from and how it serves us, which was your question. In early life, the ego self appears as a necessity. Why might it be necessary to have an ego as a child?
So you can survive.
Yeah, so you can function and survive within the world around you. It's absolutely essential. And I don't want anyone to think that there's anything terribly innately wrong with having an ego. It's important. Until it gets in your way. And that's what I'm talking about. So you can do a lot of things with the ego that are helpful. So that we came here, we talked about resilience. That's a helpful part of ego. How about self-respect? Self-confidence? How about adaptability? Focus? Willpower? All good stuff. Please go and develop yourself. Become fully actualized. I will never suggest otherwise. But realize that the ego has some tendencies. One is that as we're shaping ourselves to survive in the world, we often chase other people's goals and things that aren't important to us. Some people spend their entire lives in situations where that's true. And the same with the careers, the relationships, the social roles, and the accomplishments that we pursue. And the ego also loves recognition, stability, and control. So if you challenge my story of myself, I'm going to get angry with you. How dare you tell me that thought pattern is wrong? Because you're identifying with it. However, in later life, our soul cries out for return to purpose, and we got to be really conscious about how we unwrap the layers of ego that keep us bound. Because most people, before they die, start to wake up to that inner being or consciousness. Nietzsche calls it out as saying one becomes two. We find a deeper, unfamiliar part of ourselves. A spiritual, and this is a spiritual evolution, hence the reason we're doing it here. It's not a psychological evolution. It's just a realizing that all the psychological things that we pursued and all the worldly pursuits have left us empty. Some of us who are less intelligent have to go and achieve all those to realize it. But other people can just hear it and learn it and realize that we can just go right to the self-transcendence step in the understanding of ego and the awareness of how this plays in our lives. Meaning, purpose, and connection call. For we all live in an illusory hut of I. So when I mentioned that a lot of really smart people know about this, knew about it, and I didn't, this is another perfect example. Einstein's a physicist, and here he writes, well, the true value of a human being is determined primarily by the measure and sense which he's attained liberation from the self. Read that 30 years earlier. Or saw Maslow's study 30 years later, his revised one. Much of modern life is focused on the self. I'd almost say all of modern life is focused on the self. Because it creates a sense of meaning and identity, and it drives many self-enhancing activities. Please, be your best self. It's helpful in the formative years, but constraining later. And I liken it to building a hut. I love this part of the story. So if you think of ego as a hut, like a little place you live, what's going to happen when you live in a hut? Well, if you live in a hut, what's going to happen is you are going to have walls and a ceiling, right? You're going to have all these things. So you're going to have the kind of a structure. Maybe something like this. Now, when you're inside this structure, what's going to happen? You live inside of it. You're going to have all sorts of boundaries, right? Is it going to make your view better or worse? Are you going to understand things outside of it as well as if there was no hut in your way? It's going to limit your perceptions, right? It's going to be defined. Does it move around? Probably not. So it's fixed? Right. This is exactly the point. Your ego is very much like this. It sets the boundary for where you go and where you don't go, or what you do and don't do. It limits what you know, and it creates a basis for comparison to everything else. It forms our expectations and desires, and it makes us feel unique, but unfortunately different and separate. So let's keep going with this hut. The pillars you could think of as being labels that we put on things. You could think of it as being stereotypes. You can think of it as being stories we hold or judgments we make. The crossbeam, I love calling this identity. The roof would be our desires and our expectations. And the foundation might be our beliefs and assumptions. So you live in the desert. Tell me about your hut. Tell me about your hut. Is it in the sun? It's air conditioned, said my wife. Yeah, it's definitely air conditioned because you got to have some ventilation, right? Are you going to have a roof? It's going to be a fantastic sunproof roof, right? Sides are going to be made out of materials you can find in the desert. Sides of cacti, lizard skins, I don't know. Are you going to have a good, easy time finding poles for your tent? It's probably going to be hard because it's wood, right? So maybe your tent is a lean-to, or maybe you live in the shadow side, the north side of a mountain range, or in a cave, right? And that's your world. So what's the most important thing to you in your world? What physiological thing is the most important thing in your world? And how do you stay alive in the desert? Number one thing, water. Water becomes the thing you care most about, more than anything else. When do you hunt? Right? First thing in the morning or late at night? Do you ever hunt in the middle of the day? No, midday, what do they say? Englishmen and madmen are the only ones who are out in the middle of the day of the sun? Yeah. So this is your world. Now tell me, how does that then allow you to understand someone who lives on a mountain where snow is the regular thing?
Don't you need a door, though, to get out if you're in the house?
There we go. This is the way out. This whole seminar. This is literally the way out. Thank you for that straight line. Yeah. So if someone's in the woods, don't you think they're weird for using wood to support their thing? They don't care about water. Isn't that strange? You know, half the year they've got to hunker down. They save food for when things get cold and the snow comes. And you don't understand any of this. You don't understand their world because your hut isn't like their hut. The same with the person in the mountain or the person who lives on the ocean and fishes. This is the perfect metaphor for how our ego shows up with other people's egos. Because we have this identity, and it's full of stories and labels and judgments and expectations and wants and desires. And we live inside of it. And it keeps us safe when we're young. And it helps us function. And it sets the stage for us to be all we can be. But at the end of that, no one tells you what's going to happen. Something's still going to be missing. And it takes an enormous amount of energy to keep this thing up and nice. Who's got a home here? Does your home take any work to keep up and nice? A lot, right? I will conjecture that your ego takes more. Let's watch a video.
It takes a lot of energy to be the ego. It takes no energy to be yourself. Again, it takes a lot of energy to keep up the ego, to be the ego. This is why I can prove that personality is not real, it's not true. But with personality, very often when we meet other beings, you're uncomfortable. We start to play, to perform, to make sure that your mind is saying, oh, you did very well, you was very impressive, you looked really good. Even when you're talking, it's like you're in front of a camera. It's like this. So it's exhausting. And if you keep it up, then people start to feel, I don't like people. Why? Because you feel uncomfortable with them. So this already shows your personality is not true state, the egoic personality. You see? When you are comfortable in yourself, you don't mind who, you're not performing. So you can really meet and you can afford to be empty. You don't come with a bag of tricks. You don't need it. And so when we meet like this, love flows completely unimpeded. And your space becomes panoramic. Your joy flows like a river.
Anything come up for anyone? Very expensive resource-wise to feed this ravenous ego. To steal a rock song title, who made whom? Me, my, mine. Michael Singer tells us the spiritual path is always about letting go of yourself. Yet we spend lifetimes maintaining our sense of self. I am me. But who is that? Who are you? Finish the statement. I am blank. Anybody? What?
Happy.
Amen. But that's an emotion. That's not what you are. Outspoken, that's a descriptor, but it's not who you are. Mom, that's a role you play, but if you weren't a mom, you would still be you, so that's not who you are.
Human.
What? A woman, again, a gender, not who you are. You're still, if you were a man, you would still be you.
Child of God.
Child of God, love it. Again, a descriptor. Who are you? What? You are me? And that's the ego, certainly. The ego looking at itself saying, I am. I am. Okay, I'll philosophically give you a rule, and then you can continue to answer it. You are what you control. Do you control your body? All of us gray hair or no hair folks smiled. No, so you're not your body. Do you control the thoughts that pop in your head?
No.
You do not. You do not. The I in thought, I thought is a misnomer. It's actually, thoughts are brain static. You could never stop them if you wanted to. Go sit somewhere for 3 days with no books, nothing, just sit by yourself and see what kind of madness you're bringing into the world. Right? So if you're not your thoughts, your job, the titles people have given you, the awards people have awarded you, the things you think, if you're not the roles you play, if you're not your body, what are you? What is the part of you that sees your thoughts? You are pure awareness, pure consciousness. You are spirit having a human experience. It's important we remember that, because egos kind of helped us out at the beginning, but now, not so much. Ego is a thought. It's self-made, it's an abstract construct, and it is, just like all other thoughts, not to be trusted on its face value. Your sense of self varies wildly. It vacillates, it changes, it depends. Day, time, what's happened to you recently. Did you have a bad day? Did you get in a car accident? Did you win the lotto? Your days are going to be very different. You're full of contradictions. You'll say one thing, but then do another. Mood, perception. When I'm hungry, I'm not the same person as when I'm full. Right? And all this built with these, it's rife with imaginary ideas that are unproven, with trite sayings that are unsubstantiated. And all this adversely impacts your perception, your decisions, and your effectiveness. So we live life by ego. We get kind of a life that we may not want, one that isn't always very pretty. You see, you can't be found. You exist only in your head. No science study, no research has ever found you. It's fake. You made it up. Yet, it runs the show.
But are you saying like we're almost like an empty vessel that we fill up with these different things and that becomes who we are? But there's parts of ourselves that like people have just these innate talents, like somebody can play the piano or artistic or mathematical. So there is something that does guide us.
Yeah, and I like to put that under the category. Remember two sessions ago we talked about thought versus knowing? Those skills and talents are the knowing part of you. Just like your spirit's going to know certain things work for you and doesn't work. It doesn't have facts for it, it just knows. Because we're going to move from thinking to intuiting. And that is an excellent point. It certainly encompasses those. We won't separate them uniquely. So let me just tell you a quick story about a statue, because this is really important. I think it'll drive home the point, and then I want to show you a video. So, in the 1950s, there was a group of monks in Thailand who were moving this giant Buddha statue, and the thing was humongous. And it had been there for several hundred years. And before they moved it, they wanted to study it and make sure they weren't going to break it. So they did a full examination. They found this little crack in the base, and it looked like it had been coated with sealer, and it was very disturbing because they were afraid that when they put some pressure on it, the whole thing would collapse. So they bring in all these experts, X-ray, crystallography, and some sciences were just becoming available, and they X-rayed it, and they looked at it. And sure enough, the scientists said, if you move this, it's probably going to crack. But then the X-ray people came back and said, something's wrong. There's something inside this. So they did a small biopsy on one corner, and they found that the whole statue inside was solid gold. That actually the outside clay with the coated sealer that they've been looking at for several hundred years had covered the real value inside, and they never knew about it, probably to protect it from being stolen or destroyed. We are exactly like that. Our egos are the wrapping paper on the gift. The crusty, chalky, glued together, earthen covering is our egos. And the spirit cells that we keep buried under that ego is the gold inside. It's a fascinating story. So back to me being stupid and everyone else being smart. I'm going to have you watch a video now on this aspect of self from another physicist. He's actually one of the most famous people in the intellectual circles because he had some of the most profound ideas in the last century. His name's David Bohm. He's another physicist, and I don't know why physicists seem to know more about my work than I do, but they do. And here we go again. He's going to talk to you about self.
Thought itself is not intelligent because it is restricted to being a response of past assumptions and dispositions that may no longer be relevant. And those assumptions and dispositions are not capable of questioning themselves because they're too, rather like a computer program. And something more is needed to become aware that the program is inadequate and to question it. See, we could call that intelligence. Intelligence is of a different quality from thought. It does not even originate in the brain. It originates somehow in some very subtle reality which we cannot locate in space or time, but it acts within the brain. You see, the self is considered to be something supremely important. Whatever it needs is regarded as absolutely necessary, and therefore it takes first priority and it pushes everything aside, including even the requirement that thoughts should be correct and true. And therefore, it immediately starts self-deception going. That is why thought becomes dangerous. This action of creative intelligence can really touch the brain cell physically. And we could think of it removing the program, you see, free humanity from the destructive conditioning we've been talking about. That is, this conditioning around the self-centered thought is really an enslavement to absurdity, to destruction, to unhappiness, sorrow. And no other kind of freedom means anything unless we're free from that.
Wow. The self will do whatever it needs to take care of itself because it's considered itself supremely important, including lie to itself and deceive you. That's what he just said. And the outcome, as he just said, is an enslavement to absurdity, to destruction, to unhappiness, and to sorrow. All right, well, what did you really mean, Dave? Tell us how you really feel. So what comes up for you when you hear that? Yeah, how do you get rid of it? I don't know if you ever get rid of it, but how do you become the master of it again? Instead of it running you, just like thoughts we talked about the other day. How do you sit in a position where you are sovereign and it is there, and you give it space, but you still manage it. You're in charge of it. Yeah. So the ego self, we started with this, the ego self divides. And the less me you have, the more room there is for we. For the ego is a fortress of self-importance. It erects walls that prevent us from connecting with others, and it leaves us in our own limited, self-constructed realities. It is very difficult to hear and understand others with a lot of self. And we all have a lot of self. So how often have you talked to someone and asked something, and then they didn't understand you, they did something else, or you didn't get what you expected, or you assumed something and that isn't what happened, or, yeah. So even the simplest commands like, would you bring me this to here, and something gets messed up because yourself's getting in the way. You're not able to be clear beyond the self. I did a lot of corporate development work, so I did a lot of work on communication. Anyone know the first rule of communication, of effective communication? We always teach to students. Listen, it actually is not. That's the second. What's the first rule? The first rule of communication is to accept the other person. If they are unworthy, you consider them ignorant. You look at them as being not worth your time or having no wisdom on the subject. You will not hear anything they say afterwards. I mean, you'll hear the words, but they'll have no import to you. And therefore, you're not communicating. Acceptance is the first step. This is mine. No, that's yours. There it is. Nope, I got it. Yeah, so if you don't accept, and this is really important because it's really important that you understand that you have an ego because a problem you're aware of is a problem half solved. Love that saying. So as we go into the world, to realize that yourself is part of the challenge that you're having, that you're the thing showing up in the problems in your life, is really important. That's the first rule of awareness. Because if you're closed off or defensive, we already know how that plays in communication. It stunts relationships. We know that if you have less empathy for people, it's difficult to see something from their point of view. And ego does all this. It fuels competition, arrogance, pride, and creates tension, distrust. We see it everywhere in society today. But we're called to walk beyond that. And that's, of course, where we're going. And equally important, vulnerability and emotive honesty are limited, and this starves a genuine connection to others. There is no us. There is no us. The Dalai Lama said something profound once. He said, there is no us. There's no we. There's no me. He said, as such, when I go into society or into the world and someone offends me, does something to hurt me, or says something against me, there is no me to be hurt. So the highest order of service in my life is to absorb those comments, to realize they're really reflections of the heart of the people who spoke them, to absorb those comments for the world. It's my highest form of service. I don't spread them on, and I don't take them personally, because there is no me to take them personally. Interesting, right? To get here, we have to wake up. We have to see our thoughts. We have to get to a place where we observe our thoughts. So I gave you all homework last week. Just want to take 1 minute and talk about it. How did practicing mindfulness 10 minutes a day show up for you? Did anyone notice anything? Did anyone... Any comments anyone wants to make?
I found it hard to do.
Right, absolutely.
I didn't know it seemed ineffective, and am I doing it right? And
right. Yeah, so most people start there, but the doing it right is just catching your thought and coming back. That's actually the doing it right.
Okay.
So when it feels like it's not working and you see the thought and you're having a lot of thoughts, that's actually the process. So you're right in it. The problem is it's backwards to like running. You do a lot of running early in meditation, come back, and then later you do less. And when we train to exercise, we do a little at first, and then we do a lot more later. So you get a lot of those hits, but yes, absolutely. If you're coming back to now, you're doing it right. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If there is no us, how does less me allow more me?
Less me. This would be the Dalai Lama's comment, but yeah. Well, here's the thing. No, I get it. So one's an absolute statement. There is no us. In a kind of a spiritual sense. No one's ever getting rid of their ego. There's always going to be me and we. Let's shift from less me to more we. But this is a philosophical, this would be a true, the ultimate philosophy. There really isn't. Anything you do to yourself, you do to other people. Think of life as a napkin. And you're in the center, and all the people you know are on the periphery of the napkin. And as you become more still and more aware, and we increase the edges, the center of the napkin, what happens to the edges? So as you increase your awareness, the whole world comes with you. We are all connected. That's the point. Anyone else want to weigh in on their practice?
Interruptions sometimes are hard to connect.
Yeah. It's ideal if you can put your phone on silent and go somewhere and tell people not to bother you for 10 minutes. That's ideal. No question.
But even the interruptions of your own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly fighting back to
Yeah. Reminds me of the hobbits. Remember in the Lord of the Rings, the hobbits have first breakfasts and second breakfasts. I often have first meditations and second meditations. The first is that 5 minutes of craziness when nothing will settle down. The next is the actual meditation. So that's an option too. But there is no bad. Even if that's what happens, the first keep with it, because you'll start seeing it show up in your life when you're not practicing, and that's the beauty of it. You'll be somewhere where someone's bugging you. All of a sudden, you'll notice your thought, and you'll be like, the whole world shifts to now, to still, and you now can choose your response instead of letting your emotions choose it. A strong sense of self separates, I've said it. But this is really powerful. This is Niels Bohr, another physicist. We can't get away from physicists today. The opposite of a fact is a falsehood, but the opposite of one profound truth may very well be another profound truth. Whoa, are you saying my true and your true can both be true even if they're not jiving with each other? That's what he's saying. So I want you to assess the continuum. Good versus true versus right. It'd be nice if my hut wasn't in the center. All right, anyway, we'll do it. Good versus true versus right. If these are on a continuum, and we can argue about whether or not they could ever be on a continuum, but we're going to put them on there today. Where does the most ego show up? Right. Where does least ego show up? So this is your ego line. So if ego separates, what happens to me versus we? What happens to our ability to communicate and connect as we move across this? Yeah. Yeah. So this is basically our ability to interface, to communicate. We'll use communication here. What's the solution? How do we shift from competitive to cooperative? Stop thinking we know the right answer. And start just doing the good thing. And being the good thing. It's super simple, but this is the challenge. And I'll give you an example, and this is why I like Neil Bohr's comment so much. I want you to tell me which of these are true. I was looking the other day, these 3 rings. Is this the 3 rings, or is this the 3 rings? Or wait a minute, is this the 3 rings? So which one's true? Welcome to awareness. No matter how much you hold on to your true and your right, it's only because you're looking at it from one way.
How could the straight lines be a circle?
So if you tip these circles flat and then rotate them 90 degrees and look at them right from their horizontal, yeah. It's a good lesson. It reminds us. It reminds us that we're not always on par, and we should question ourselves before we go in for the kill. So this is many relationships. This is many relationships. And look at this. When you're sitting across the table from somebody, you got some distance, right? But when you're in a car together or you're walking on the same journey together, you're shoulder to shoulder. So if you're allowing them to be fully themselves, you're shoulder to shoulder. But if you're talking at them, you're across the table. You're negotiating. And this is exactly the space orientation that happens with connection to other people. Spirit self walks in good. I don't need to tell you what's true or what's right. All I have to do is tell you to do and be good.
That's what you're doing. You're in front.
Trying. Yeah. Now, of course, I run into this problem all the time. I am more aware of my ignorance than most people, but there is an ignorance to wisdom. Do we see this in society anywhere? Is there anywhere in society we don't see it? Thomas Sowell tells us it takes considerable knowledge to realize that to realize the extent of our own ignorance. Has anyone ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Oh, okay, so there are hundreds of cognitive biases. This is one of my favorite. The Dunning-Kruger effect is the effect that people who don't have a lot of information versus people who have a lot of information, basically, or people who are non-experts versus experts. You see low competency, for lack of a less polite word, people, they overestimate their ability to do things. Why do people with low competency overestimate their ability? Because why? Why? It's right on the sheet. Why do they overestimate their ability? Because they lack awareness of what they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So they don't know the complexity of it. So basically they don't have any, so they like, yeah, sure, I understand quantum physics. Whereas high competency individuals do exactly the opposite. They underestimate their ability. They assume that others know what they know, incorrectly, of course, and that others have great insight to the complexity of their field of expertise and its challenges. Again, awareness is a problem half solved. So the solution? Who was the most humble man ever to walk the earth?
Jesus.
Before Jesus, who was the most humble man ever to walk the earth? God called him the most humble man on the earth.
Job.
He let some people out of Egypt. Moses was, in God's own word, the most humble man on the earth. What comes up for you when you hear the word humble? What kind of personality traits? Selfless. Okay, I like that one. That's a positive one. Does anyone think?
Non-judgmental.
Non-judgmental. Again, another positive one. Very good.
Lack of ego.
Lack of ego. Love it. I was usually people will respond with the judgmental ones. Meek, shy, afraid. But to be humble is anything but that. To be humble is to be strong and clear and open and aware of your own limitations. It's a repositioning, a right-sizing of yourself and its importance. What you know is minuscule in existence. 117 billion people have lived on this planet. You are one. There are 1 trillion planets in every galaxy on average, and there are 20 trillion galaxies. Physicists regularly explore new dimensions of space and time that we cannot go to. And our 5 senses only bring in about 1% of all the information in our surroundings. So tell me again, how is it you know the answer? How is it you know what you should expect or what others should do or you have the ability to judge or condemn? You just don't know. Maybe that's why God says clearly in the Bible, I'll do the judging. You stay out of it. Probably because we stink at it. Wisdom is knowing you don't. Let go. You tightly grasp a vapor. Stephen Hawking, again, I'm just sticking with physicists today because I just can't get away from him. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. Sometimes it's easier, instead of me talking at you, for me to share a creative piece of artwork that was done in this space. There's a poem by Sapphire Rose called She Let Go. I'm going to read it to you. I think it brings up this interesting point. There is nothing for you to do with your ego except to let it go. One piece at a time, one decision at a time, one understanding at a time. She let go. She let go without a thought or a word. She let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all the right reasons. Wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry, she just let go. She didn't ask anyone for advice, and she didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures, she just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back and all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter, and she certainly didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. In fact, no one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. And a small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her, and the sun and moon shone forevermore. Again, that's the poem She Let Go. My encouragement for you, as you practice over this next week, your mindfulness work, is to start tearing down and moving out and escaping this ego hut, especially now that it has a door, because today was the door. We created it for. Before that, you were just stuck inside running against the walls. So we put a door on it today. Your fixed identity is too small. It limits your life. It requires enormous energy to maintain. The preponderance of your energy. You get all that back for more time, peace, and happiness if you let that go. Your walls block view to all the other ways to be, to understand, to know, to live, to love, to serve. It dulls your perception, puts you to sleep, because there's many more meaningful and exciting ways to live. I know firsthand that when you've achieved your goals and you double down to achieve the same types of goals again, you're going to end up in the same place. Doubling down on worldly pursuits don't work. And I have hundreds of CEOs I worked with who, when they achieve their first million or their 50 million, go and try to double it and do it again at bigger companies. But their happiness is no greater because the world doesn't give you things that satisfy. It's coming back to your spirit self that's going to create your satisfaction. Because your self no longer serves you. So keep practicing. Spend some time with yourself. 10 minutes a day if you can. I'm glad you're running a lot of thought. Good, you're absolutely normal. You're going to hear a lot of noise. You're going to have, it's not something you're going to fall into. You're just going to go still. But catch your thought, come back to now. Catch your thought, come back to the sound of the room. Catch your thought, come back to your breath. Catch your thought, come back to the road in front of you. Eyes open. Questions or comments? If mindfulness is the process, awareness is the state. Next week, we're talking about the state of awareness. So we learned about mindfulness. Before that, we did beliefs and thoughts. Today, we talked about how ego just tarnishes this huge swath of your beliefs and thoughts. So we came at it 2 different ways. And next week, we're going to go to awareness, which is the state of being aware. Which earlier, when we ran out of things to call ourselves, we realized that actually we're consciousness, we're awareness, we're spirit. So we're going to go right back into that next time, and it's going to be very powerful. So comments or questions?
What's the one thing that you said that you were missing? Is it spirit then? I'm like I guess I'm waiting for it to be wrapped up in a bowl.
The short thing was, what was missing was an awareness that I was caught up in my own head with a lot of noise for things that didn't matter, and I was ignoring my spirit self. And later in life, that costs you more and more, and you'll end up not being happy if you just keep doing worldly things, or if you're not in control of your thoughts, or if you're living to create this fake you that doesn't really exist. Thank you. On the very last page, which is a tear-off, and that's not by accident, is a fixed QR code. Fixed in the sense that the old one linked you to one seminar. This links you to the whole list. So Feel free to tear it off and give it to a friend, or take a picture of it and send your link to a friend. You've got it now forever. All of them, not just these 4, but the next 3, the next 4 as well will be on this link. And please be a blessing. Share with a friend. The highest form of appreciation is get out there. Look, I know this stuff has value. The secret is getting in front of people so they can see it's valuable.
So that one over there?
Yeah, it's fixed. They're all fixed now. Yep. Yeah, it's also should be the last page on your, right there. So you can use that too. All right, thanks everyone. I appreciate you.
Thank you.